morning, everybody, and welcome to The Art as Well. My guest this morning is Noël O'Callaghan. Noël was born in Cork and is the daughter of the painter Dermod O'Callaghan. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Correct, yes.
Good. After attending Crawford College of Art, she graduated from UCD with a degree in English literature. She worked as a full-time professional actor before moving to Berlin in the mid-80s and became a full-time visual artist. She has a studio in both Cork and Berlin, and is in fact the second Irish artist from Berlin, or who lives in Berlin, who's been on The Art as Well. So let's go straight to Berlin and say good morning to Noël. Noël, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning. I'm fine, thanks, Alan.
Good, good, good. Very well, thank you. What is it about Berlin?
I'd say what was it about Berlin in my case, because I moved there in the mid 80s. And
Yes.
in those days, it was just such a fascinating city, West Berlin. It was, the wall was there. So that was very interesting for me. I studied, I must say, I studied actually just say in UCC.
What did I say?
UCD.
Well, that's a terrible crime to commit on a Cork person.
Dubs. Yeah,
Apologies.
but not all. Yeah, so there was quite a few people from UCC actually were going over there at the time. So there was a bit of a trail over to Berlin. So I had quite a few contacts there. And I studied history as well. So I did international relations. So I was fascinated with the Berlin Wall. I was always fascinated with German expressionists. They were my big influence, particularly Edvard Munch, who isn't German, but spent time in Berlin, and Emil Nolde and Egon Schiele and people like that. So yeah, I was very interested in going to Berlin. And then Douglas, my now partner, who wasn't my partner then, was in Berlin. And so I went to visit him for a holiday in 1985. And it was just, wow, yeah, I want to stay here. Because there was a load of empty factory space.
Yes.
Also, they wanted us living in West Berlin. We were on the front lines of the Cold War,
Yes,
So
yes.
an awful lot of West German millionaires didn't want to be living in Berlin. And there was not much, there wasn't much speculation of property there.
Okay.
It was always this sort of feeling, it was a frontier town, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was loads of space to create art. And also there was a sort of a Berlin waiting, which meant that you were actually, your pay was subsidized. So
Yes.
you could live very well from working 2 days a week and creating art for the rest of the week, and the rents were really low.
Rent
So
was low, yes.
yeah, so it's quite different now, unfortunately. But back in those days, it was definitely a great place for art, for
Yes.
hands and everything.
So the wall came down in 89, is that right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. And how was that? You were there at the time.
I was, yeah. I wasn't celebrating because I felt that it was going to be a big shake-up and a big takeover. The West took over the East, and I didn't think that was such a good idea,
Right.
particularly. I thought there was a lot of things in the East that were worth preserving, like the subsidized rents and the food and education for everybody and things like that, which
I
then
see.
went. And of course, the speculators came in then as well and bought up an awful lot of property in West Berlin, and the prices of rents skyrocketed.
I see. Right. But there's a very vibrant artist community there still, isn't there?
There is, yeah, that's true,
Yeah.
there is. But it's a question of how much longer that will hang in there. Like, it's the same with, I think, most cities. I think we're seeing the same in Dublin now and in Cork City as well, for instance. My base now is in West Cork, even though I'm a Cork City person, because it's just not really feasible to have a place in the city. Rents are,
Cities.
yeah,
Yeah.
similar with Berlin. So I'm just wondering how long that will last.
Okay. Well, you do have other plans which we'll discuss, which will mean that you won't be too concerned about it in the future, perhaps. But anyway, listen, tell us about your dad, because your dad was a well-known painter
That's
and
right.
taught in the Crawford for a good number of years,
30
30
years.
or 30 years. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me about him.
Yeah, he was born in Drimoleague, but his parents were living in Cork City at the time, and they moved to the city for work because they were from a poor class of peasant, I suppose, basically, say, up the mountain. And but his mum went back home to have him in Drimoleague, and then he left school at 14 to become a draper's assistant. But his mum spotted his artistic talent because he was always drawing, and she took him down to the Crawford to night classes. So he went to night classes for about 5 years or so, and his tutors saw that he had kind of an exceptional talent, and they encouraged him to enter the Taylor Scholarship. So he did that, and in 1938 he won it. And so this was a huge thing for him. He was the first member of his family ever to have third level education. So he went to Dublin and studied in the Metropolitan under Sean Keating and Maurice McGonigal. And so that was great. And then he won the Taylor Prize then in the next year in 1939. And so then he came back to Cork, and just as he came back, the position came free of full-time teacher of painting in Crawford. So he got that position and he taught there for 30 years. And he was a very prolific artist. So as well as working full-time, he also produced a very big body of work. In fact, he won a medal in the Paris Salon in the mid-50s. For bronze medal for drawings exhibited there. But he wasn't allowed to have the time off from Crawford. They couldn't spare him to get his medal presented, so it had to be sent in post.
Ah, that's terrible.
I know.
Terrible.
There's like nothing in the paper about it or anything. It's crazy.
So he enjoyed his time, I presume, in the Crawford.
Well, I suppose, I mean, he had his difficulties in the Crawford really, because he had he was working there full time, and it was fine up to about 1969. His boss, VEC, were located in the City Hall, but in about 1968 they moved to the Crawford building, which is now the Crawford Gallery. That was the school he was teaching in. And then he did have conflict with his direct boss, the CEO of the VEC. Somebody described it as a conflict between the free spirit and the authoritarian. And so my father had to leave then in 1970, unfortunately.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
I think there was a lot of that going on even in Dublin, wasn't there, at the time?
It
just seemed,
was,
yeah. So you've not so much followed in his footsteps, but you did end up going to the Crawford.
I did. I also ended up being asked to leave.
Okay, so you were kicked out, in other words.
Yes, I was expelled from art school.
So tell me about that, because you were quite disappointed with the whole regime and
yes.
what you were learning or not learning.
Yes, I always wanted to be a painter, like my dad. I was very interested from a very early age. I was always drawing and painting, and I think he was delighted about that. And he had left in 1970. I went there first in 1977. I was only 16 then. I was very young when I left school by leaving early. And so I found it very, the painting, there wasn't much instruction that I wanted in painting and drawing. There wasn't anyone there after my dad left, I think, to give proper painting instruction. And I did enjoy sculpture. I was doing foundation, so I had a bit of everything. So I learned how to make plaster casts, and I learned a bit of metal work. I enjoyed that, but I didn't want to be a sculptor, particularly. I enjoyed it. And so I was quite disappointed. And also it was a very bullying kind of regime there. The tutors kept saying, "We can fail you," to all of us all the time. There was a terrible pressure of points. There was a body called the NCEA. I don't even know what it stands for, but they're the people who give out the pieces of paper that says you're an artist at the end of it. And I rechristened them the National Chastisers of Erring Artists, and I made cartoons and pinned them up on the board. And this didn't go down very well.
No.
So I had tutors then underneath with whips going, draw, and these little matchstick students furiously drawing.
Yes.
The real rub was that the three matchstick tutors, as somebody in class said, they actually did look like the three tutors. So
I see. Yes.
So anyway, I was asked to leave. I was asked to conform or leave. So I took the only honourable route.
And conform, what would have conforming have meant?
I don't know. I didn't stay to find out. I suppose just
not putting up posters.
And not putting up cartoons. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you kind of changed career a wee bit in the sense that you went to UCC to study literature.
I went back to my leaving because my parents couldn't afford to send me to college, so I got 4 honours studying at home.
Right.
And then I went and studied English literature and history, and I absolutely loved it. I felt I learned a lot, which I didn't feel I learned, in art school. I really enjoyed studying English literature, Jane Austen, Ulysses, Beckett, Eliot, Anglo-Saxon, Chaucer, all these things I really loved learning.
Yes.
Because I was always a bookworm anyway. And
were you painting at the same time?
Yeah, I was actually. I was still painting in my bedroom at home. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I put on an exhibition in UCC, took part in a group exhibition.
Okay.
But in UCC, I spent a lot of time in the Dramat, the theatre company. I discovered acting, and I really, really loved that. It was great.
Yeah.
And so you can do theatre studies now, but in those days you couldn't. So I just spent, a lot of time down the theatre.
So tell me about the acting, because when you left college, you kind of went into that, didn't you? Almost
Yes.
full time.
Yes, I left when I finished my degree. I did the higher dip but I only lasted 2 weeks, and I really didn't like it. And because one of my tutors in college, Emily Fitzgibbon, approached me, and she was founding a new theatre and education company called Graffiti. So she asked me if I wanted to be part of it. So yeah, I was delighted. So I took up professional acting then, and I was there for about 3 years, and that was really nice.
And you toured around schools and all sorts of things, didn't
Yeah,
you?
we toured around schools, and then at night we used to put on plays in the Ivernia Theatre on Grand Parade in Cork. Yes, so it was great. Really loved it.
Fantastic. And when you moved to Berlin, what was the instigator of that? What was the sort of the moment that said, "I'm out of here"?
Yeah, I suppose. Well, I mean, Ireland was very repressive in those days, I mean, the whole situation, there was no contraception, no abortion, the church was still very much so. I just really I always felt I wanted to travel and be somewhere else and try out other things. My dad also traveled quite a bit, and he traveled around to all over the world. He was in America and the Middle East, and all over Europe and
Yes.
places. So I just wanted to travel. And I'd say Douglas was there, who was very important to me at the time, and went over to visit him. I suppose a lot of people were leaving Cork at the time. There was a great deal of recession in Ireland in the mid-80s, and just so many of my friends were gone. It was quite lonely as well,
Yeah.
Felt,
Yes.
everybody who was really had a bit of go or was creative, and Cork was devastated really in the 80s by the industrial kind of collapse. I think
Yeah.
Irish Steel, Fords, all these places closed, and it just became like a ghost town. And I wanted to go, everybody was going to in London, all my friends were in London, but I wanted to go somewhere with a different language. That was somehow important to me. I don't know why. I just wanted to live somewhere with a different language.
Well, you obviously don't have any regrets on that front, because you did
No.
settle there for a good while.
Yes.
And but your acting still came into play, didn't it, when
Yeah.
you were in Berlin?
Yes, I was doing all sorts of odd jobs, like everybody goes abroad. I was working in bar, I was teaching English, and then I also got a job with the theatre company, Commedia dell'arte, street theatre. It was again in the glorious days of West Berlin, when there was so much arts funding. So that was great. I did that for about a year or so. And then myself and Douglas started a band together. And that became really the center of my life then. Alice Brennan was the name of our band, which is German for burn everything. It's a type of oven that they have here for heating, Alice Brennan. And we called our band after this oven, Alice Brennan, like written like an Irish family name, but it's
Alice.
yeah.
I see.
We were playing Turkish Irish speed folk. We had a friend who played sass, and we toured all over Europe, and we toured when the East opened up, we toured around there, and we played in Istanbul, and yeah, we had a really interesting time.
Yeah. Okay.
But
And you did some mime as well, didn't you? Because that sort of overcame
yeah,
the language barrier.
yeah, that was the Commedia dell'arte theatre
I
group
see.
that we spoke about there. Yeah,
Okay.
that's that.
And have you since learned German? I mean, are you very
Oh
proficient?
yeah, I'm fluent in German. Yeah,
Are
I
you?
mean, back in those days, you had to learn German or you starved.
I
Nowadays,
see.
I think internationals come to Berlin, they never have to learn German because everybody speaks English, but you had to learn German then.
Sure. Okay. And tell me, you maintain a studio in Cork,
Yeah, well,
or you
I
during
I
that period?
only that's recently really.
Is
I
it?
didn't for many years,
Right. Okay.
but I started returning to Cork there about 5 years ago, more and more. And then myself and Douglas, we got this place in West Cork, an old pub, which we're refurbishing, which we're making habitable. And the ground floor and the window space is beautiful for
Yes.
displaying exhibitions. We do that, but we're still
Wonderful.
we're in transit. We're
Yeah.
transitory, permanent state of permanent transition, I think, as
I
people.
know. Well, and that's why we're not going to see your studio today, because
Well, I don't have proper
no.
Wi-Fi in my studio, unfortunately. So my friend has kindly allowed me be in her
Yeah.
flat. So, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So at what point, Noel, did you sort of say, look, I'm going to do art full time, become a visual artist full time?
Yeah, I was when my father died. My father died
I
in
see.
1993. I
Hmm.
came back to Ireland because he was sick. And then I suppose when he died, it was a huge shock going into his studio, seeing all the brushes, all the materials, and this idea that all the knowledge was gone. And in some ways, feeling, I suppose it was this feeling like that it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it, you know. Somebody always painted. He did that, you know. Now I
Yes.
had to do it, you know. But I
Yeah.
mean, I suppose it was something I always wanted to do anyway
Hmm.
until my experience in art college. It was like coming back to it, I suppose. Coming,
Okay.
I kind of felt I'll always do this someday. Coming.
Right. And you were living in the family home then for a year
I
or two,
did,
right?
yeah, yeah. My mum lived on for a year after my dad, and then she died a year later as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you immediately go back to Berlin after that?
No, I stayed in the family home for about maybe 8 years or so,
Oh,
uh,
did you? Oh,
teaching myself to paint. I lived
hey.
there. Yeah, I visited Berlin. I exhibited there. So again, I was in a transitory kind of mode that time as well, going
Hmm.
back and forth.
And was Douglas sort
He was
of
living in Berlin.
following you, or was he still over there?
No, he was still over there. Yeah, he was
Right.
doing music, still playing with
Okay.
us again.
Okay.
So you know, I would go over and play there sometimes and exhibit there and come. You know.
Hmm. And you're going to be exhibiting here as well. I mean,
That's right, yeah, next
yeah.
week, yeah, next
Yeah.
Wednesday, in fact, in Gallery Michaela Hilfrich. Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
And also you've got some work in Dublin in the Olivier Cornet, haven't you?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
delighted with that,
Yeah.
yes.
I think
Wonderful.
Olivier is here. We might chat to him about that later on.
Yeah.
Listen, that's great. Let's have a look at some of your work.
Mhm.
All right. And
Yeah.
there's a wonderful film that we're going to see as well, which is
Tip.
based on an historic clip, yeah, a clip of the film. But it was made by both yourself and Douglas, yeah,
Sorry, sorry.
and it's tremendous. But we'll see that now in a second. All right, so we're going to start with one of your father's paintings.
Yes, the fiddler, yes.
Yeah, tell us about that.
That's in the permanent collection, the Crawford. He has 5 paintings in the Crawford collection. There was actually a big retrospective of his work there in 1991, which was really nice. So that was yeah, that was great to have that. And this is in the collection. It was actually hanging for most of last year. And my uncle, who it's based on, who lives in Dublin and still plays the fiddle, came down and he played the fiddle under it. So that was really nice.
Wonderful.
But Dad actually, he had, like myself, he took a long time sometimes painting a picture. He started that sometime in the 40s. And I remember going up to the attic where his studio was and seeing him painting it again over it in the
Yes.
70s, early 70s, around 70, 1971 maybe. And he added, if you look through the red hair, you'll see the dark hair of the original of my uncle's dark hair.
Yeah.
And he sharpened up the sleeves and he sharpened up the shawley's shawl and he added a carrier going across Patrick's Bridge, one of these Ford car carriers, which
Hmm.
used to come from the Ford factory. His brother worked in the Ford factory actually, and it was crossing the bridge. We often would see them going across the bridge, bringing cars to Dublin. So
Yes.
yeah, so that was one of my favorite paintings. So I picked it there,
It's a
and
fabulous painting.
yeah,
Is,
it
is,
has.
is it quite? It is quite large, is it? Yes, it
It is
is.
quite large for his kind of
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, 68. Yeah. I had it hanging in my room for a long time, and then
Did you?
and
Yeah.
then Crawford got it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Right. The Bride and Broom. I love this.
yeah, that was kind of my what I call my profession of faith. Like in the same way as nuns dress up as brides of Christ, I dressed up as the bride of the broom. You know, it's totally sort of OTT. Here I am going to be an art, dedicating my life to art.
Yes.
I suppose it's taking this distanced sense of irony towards myself and my own life. But in fact, I mean, of course, I mean it quite earnestly because I did dedicate my life to art, actually.
Hmm.
Um, that hung in the Crawford at the volume exhibition, which was selected by Alana Height back in 1997. And it was perfume. I heavily perfumed it. So the perfume permeated the whole of the Crawford, which was quite nice.
Let's say.
Staff said they missed it when it was gone, the smell.
They went
Oh,
back to that musty smell.
I had a great idea for performance about that. I was thinking I would like to do a performance where I hang it somewhere and I come in with one of my favorite books, the Picture of Dorian Gray. And you know, there's a piece in it where Dorian first sees his portrait and he says, "Oh, it's so beautiful. I wish that I could always stay like this and that the portrait would change and not me." So I
Yes.
thought that would make quite an interesting performance. Then I turn around and obviously I have changed and the portrait hasn't. So
Not that much now, Noel.
you're very gallant.
We could have Douglas serenading you as well in that. I think you should do that. I think it's a great idea.
Actually, yeah, if there's any
Yeah.
tapes out there now, if
Yeah.
there's any exhibitions about temporality and mortality, then there's your performance.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, temporality and mortality. This is my self-portrait on my 40th birthday, which was the 9th of the 9th, 1999. And I thought such a nice number. But I always paint on things like birthdays and also Christmas Day. For a long time, I did self-portraits.
You're not a numerologist then, are you?
No, well, I don't take any of that sort of esoteric stuff seriously at all, but it's just fun, you know.
Okay.
It's a nice date. So I was out in the garden of my parents' family home painting that. It was a really bright day and I was dazzled. So the shirt is actually unpainted. I do like to leave kind of negative space arrangements within things.
Yes, I see. Yeah.
The shirt is just raw canvas because it was actually so bright I couldn't look at it. The day was so dazzling.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's a clip from, well, that's just a short clip from a I think the film itself is about 12 minutes or so, which people can look at it on my website if they want.
This is only 4 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it so long? But
who made it?
It was a group of people in Berlin, in Neukölln. They had an institution called Senderfreies Neukölln, which is it was a kind of a joke on Senderfreies Berlin, which was a radio station. And Neukölln is a particular area where I've lived always in Berlin. And it's now the arty district. It used to be the migrant district, still is really, but so they were making they were doing films of artists and studios and broadcasting it. It was an online TV channel basically.
Okay, yeah, all right. And this is all about you doing life drawing, which is a big part of your.
I was a featured artist on this particular episode and into my studio. So you can see my studio on this, in fact. So
yeah, all right.
Noël O'Callaghan kommt aus Irland, lebt seit 1983 mit Unterbrechungen in Berlin. Eine ihrer Spezialitäten ist die Aktzeichnung. Eine Besonderheit von Noël ist nicht erst den ganzen Körper auf dem Papier zu skizzieren, sondern von einem Punkt ausgehend den Körper zu erfassen. Ausgehend von der Konturlinie wird mit breiter Kreide Volumen erzeugt. Immer wieder geht der Blick zum Modell, fast genauso lange wie auf dem Papier ruht der Blick auf dem Körper der Gezeichneten. Das Aktzeichnen ist einer der traditionellen Teile der akademischen Ausbildung. Ausgehend vom 18. Jahrhundert durften die Studenten und Schüler zuerst Vorlagenblätter abzeichnen, dann Gipse nach antiken Skulpturen und als Höhepunkt der Ausbildung das Aktzeichnen. Die Ehrfurcht und die Bedeutung vor dem Aktzeichnen hat sich bis heute gehalten. Das Aktzeichnen schult den sicheren Blick, das schnelle Erfassen von dreidimensionalen Körpern.
Yeah, so that's just a short clip from it. And if people want to see the rest of the film, they can look at it on my website.
Okay, all right. And I love the way you used both hands at one point.
Yeah, it makes
Is that something you do a lot of?
Yes, I try to. It's like sculpting in a way of clay or something.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, Red Zone.
Yeah, this was a gallery I was involved with in Neukölln called Kunstraum T27. It has now become Kunstfrei Neukölln, and this was an exhibition I put on there called Red Zone. Well, the exhibition was called The Sleep of Reason actually, but the series of paintings there are called Red Zone, and they're made with blood on watercolor paper. So I've got about maybe 30 of them, and I made them between about 1994 and 2010. So that's that series. And the next one is called Snake Lady. This is part of the Changelings series now, which I'm going to be showing next week in Gallery Michaela Hilfrich. The exhibition is called Changelings in Nighttown. And the reason I called it Changelings in Nighttown is because, well, first of all, the Changelings, I'll tell you about the Changelings. The Changelings were life drawings, just like you saw me doing there. And during lockdown, there was no more life drawing, which was absolutely awful. I was really missing it, but it meant that I had time to go through my pile of life drawings, because I do these action poses, like 3-minute poses or so. So I usually end up with about 30 poses that I have to sort through. And so I started altering some of them. I could see different things in them, and I started morphing them into other things. And like, for instance, that snake is actually a piece of material that the model had. The model had draped, had fixed a piece of material onto the wall, and she was using it to support herself as a kind of prop, so she could do very active kind of poses. And I just saw it as a snake, and it was quite funny. So I turned it into a snake. And now it's being used for a book cover, which I'm really delighted with. I put it in as an open submission for a book about, it's an anthology of art and writing. And it's called Fire, Bridget and the Sacred Feminine. And it's being published by Ireland House. And it's being edited by Sean Gilligan and Niamh Boyce. And I think it's being launched in the Readers Week at Kilkenny Readers Week in October. So that's great.
Fantastic.
I'm delighted.
That's wonderful to get that, yeah.
Cover girl at last, Steak Lady. So yeah, that's the Changelings series. And the reason I call them Changelings in Nighttown for this exhibition is because the Gallery Michaela Hilfrich is in Bleibtreustrasse. And Bleibtreustrasse is the only street to be mentioned in Ulysses. And so we're having a Bloomsday event there. We're going to do music and readings, and we're going to do a walk and talk to number 34, which is the 34 Bleibtreu is mentioned in Ulysses, and Gallery Michaela Hilfrich is at number 3. So yeah, that'll be, if anybody knows anybody in Berlin, they're very welcome to come along on the 16th of June to Bleibtreu 3. And of course, the opening is on the 12th.
Sure. Send me the link to that, will you, Noel? And we'll put that in the description in the YouTube video.
Yes, I will do.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay. And this is called Fully Armed.
Fully Armed, yeah, that's also part of the Changeling series. Quite often when I'm painting life drawings very quickly, I do them in watercolor as well now, I'm more concerned with the center of movement, which is the torso and the head. And sometimes if the model breaks the pose before the arms, then it's fine, you know. So I get a lot of these Venus de Milo type sort of life drawings. But anyway, again, during my phase of lockdown where I was changing life drawings, I put these sort of bionic arms on, and I changed them into these, called the series Drone Days, and over quite a few of them. So overhead you can see these drones flying, and the creatures are masked, so you don't know if they're actually, maybe the drones are their eyes, I don't know.
It's a sort of a visor, isn't it?
It is,
like a visor, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also a series which is kind of juxtaposing the vulnerability of the human body with these dreadful weapons that we are creating, you know, to destroy ourselves. And so it's bringing those questions out. And it's also, I suppose, I read a lot of William Burroughs back in the 90s, and he has these very strange creatures as well in his books, and sort of dystopian kind of over-sexualized killing machines, this kind of stuff. There's also, I suppose, the idea you don't know if this is a human being with bionic weapons attached to them, or whether it's actually a machine covered in human flesh. I don't have answers to those things. They're just questions that making it brings to me.
Sure, I understand. And in a sense, this is continuing that theme, isn't it?
It is, in a sense, yeah. Pussy Puppet. It's these are a series of posters I made last year, and I have about maybe, I think, 13 of them. It's called Biscuits for the Condemned, 13 being a baker's dozen. Biscuits for the Condemned, it was a title that came to me in my sleep, and I thought it was quite an interesting one to, again, describe. I see the world as somewhat dystopian at the moment, And there are a lot of women who think maybe if women get into power that everything will be fine. But in this, we have Pussy Puppet is juggling 30 pieces of silver, and this is kind of dedicated to all the women who have clawed themselves to the top, who I feel have really betrayed feminism. Because I don't think women getting into power is the answer. I think dismantling power is the answer. For me, power is the patriarchy, and it has to be dismantled, really. And there are very many women who don't do this, who actually allow themselves to be used as fronts for the patriarchy. So that's where this comes from.
You disappoint me when you say that, because I actually thought women were going to save the world. But anyway.
Well, if they can dismantle power structures, they will.
Yeah.
The women in Greenham Common, for instance, were,
Yes.
you know, women who were doing that. And again, we have a similar theme here, no blood trails from Shannon. This was a banner I made for a protest at Shannon recently. And I made it as a recycled oil painting that I found in a bin at the studio. So it's amazing the things people throw into bins. I never throw away paintings. I'll finish the bitter end, but some people abandon them. And I fished it out. So the green and the red stripe at the bottom were painted by someone else. I just added the airplanes and the blood trails and the writing.
And where did you display this?
I displayed it at Shannon at a protest in Shannon there about 6 weeks ago, I think it was, a big protest against the use of Shannon by the American military.
Yes.
Object to.
Yep. All right. Now, this is a film, well, it's an excerpt from a film that both you and Douglas made.
That's right. And if Douglas is watching in the next room, he might even grace us with his presence, possibly.
He might.
Sure.
No, look, good Lord.
Surprise.
You couldn't have staged it better. Hello, Douglas.
Hello, Alan.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good. Very good. That was a very fortuitous entrance.
Yeah, I was just wondering what was going on in this room, so I thought I'd check it out.
Yeah. So tell us about the making of this film, because I think it's a beautiful film. But let's first talk about who is Rosa.
Rosa Luxemburg. She is a very interesting figure in international history, but especially in German history, because she was one of the few figures on the left who was revered both in the former East Germany and in West Germany. So she has a unique position. She was involved in the beginning of last century, especially during the First World War. She was part of a faction within the sort of democratic movement who objected to voting for war credits for money for the First World War for the German military. So she formed a rival faction with her colleagues, including a person called Karl Liebknecht, and they campaigned against the First World War, which of course was very unpopular, and they were imprisoned. So she spent actually a large part of her time in prison. But she was she was born in Poland. She was a Polish Jewish ancestry.
Yes.
She studied in Zurich, one of the first, got a PhD in Zurich. So she was a credible forerunner for sort of a feminist engagement in politics.
She never married the conventional kind of life. She had her partner, her long-term partner, who was 20 years younger than her. He was partner for a son of her best friend, Clara Deakin. So she was unusual in that respect.
And she met her fate in 1919. She was assassinated and dumped in the canal. And this is largely where your film is kind of coming from in terms of what it's based on.
Yes, and indeed where it was shot. That's where we shot it last December along the banks of a canal. It's called the Landwehr Canal, where her body was dumped. She was on the run. She was picked up and incarcerated in a hotel by a far-right militia, and then murdered and thrown into the canal in January 1919.
And I suppose we should mention that the poem which we based it on was a poem that Douglas, the whole thing came from our two various points of interest. That I spent a lot of time on the canal painting swans, and he spends a lot of time translating hard books. And he came upon this poem by Paul Celan, which he made a new translation of, called Du Liegst. Paul Celan is one of the most well-known German language poets. And this was made when Paul Celan walked along the banks of the canal, and he thought about Luxembourg lying in the canal. Her body lay there for 4 months undiscovered. And then when I was down painting the swans, I started thinking, gosh, those swans could be the descendants, in fact, of swans that were floating over her. And then I started collecting the feathers from those swans. And then the feathers brought me to think of Emmeline Pankhurst at her White Feather campaign. And then it came upon the idea, these two women in the same war, Emmeline Pankhurst, who was handing out men white feathers to force them to go to die in the First World War. And Rosa Luxemburg in the same war in Germany was urging men to lay down their weapons. And so that was really where Feathers for Rosa came. It came very organically from our two separate interests kind of converging in this.
Yeah. All right. Let's have a look at it now. And it's about 4 minutes long. Okay.
Yeah, this is an excerpt of the film.
Yes.
Years and years painting swans. I was once chased by an angry swan, twice my size. This flock lives on the Berlin Canal, the same waterway where the body of Rosa Luxemburg was thrown when she was murdered on the 15th of January 1919. There was a full moon on the 15th. Her body lay undiscovered for 4 months. Or was it? Did the swans floating above, maybe the ancestors of these swans, discover it under the ice? Did the moorhens and ducks spread the news up and down the banks? There's something in the weeds. Something in the weeds. Something's caught. One day he brought a poem into the studio to set to music about the murder, about the body in the canal. It was called Du Liegst, You Lie, by Paul Celan. You lie amid a great listening, ambushed, snowed in. Get thee to the spray, get thee to the havel. Go to the butcher's hooks, to the red apple candlesticks from Sweden. Here comes the gift-laden table, round Eden now it's turning. The man became a sieve, the woman had to swim the sow. For herself, for no one, for everyone. The Landwehr Canal won't surge, nothing stops.
I'm going to just stop the presentation there so that we can see you properly and talk to you. That was fantastic. I really loved that.
Thank
It's
you.
brilliant. And
Yes.
somebody's just made a comment about your voice, how beautiful it is and magical.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's really, really, really nice. So, I mean, was that a big deal for you to make this film? You know, did it take a long time? And
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a, journey into the unknown. We're not filmmakers by any means. We've made more documentation films of projects we've been involved in.
yeah,
So it was just holding the camera steady,
I had a
and
very bad tripod. It was blowing in the wind.
there's a nice bit of editing there too, though.
yeah, it was a great opportunity to pull all these strands together because it'd been something we'd sort of musing on for quite a long time, and especially the discovery. You could see this the figure of the pig there as a statue to Hercules. So there's a connection between the Hercules and in the poem, and these strands of choices. It's like two roads converge in a wood, or this idea of choices, and the poem is full of these choices, and this is what really inspires us. These choices that are sort of as a society, we're faced with this choice. We either reject sort of violence and war and choose a path of peace and liberation. I think we're at a crossroads, and this was a great chance to be able to, one, just film around Berlin, around the Landwehr Canal, which was really enjoyable, but also to draw together these strands which have been in the background.
Sure. And tell me, has it been shown?
No, that's only a short excerpt from it. In fact, the
Yes.
music video is cut in two, so you missed a bit of it. It's actually 9 minutes long. We have put it in for Indie Cork, so we're going to be putting it into film festivals now.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Just the final edit recently. The version we showed in the new theatre, the music video was separated from the others. We showed two films in the new theatre, but now we've merged them together.
Yeah. And we're going to see a bit of that, aren't we?
We've just seen it now.
No, but there's another part for the video.
Oh, no, that's the reel, actually. Yes, we're going to
yeah, okay.
That's
well, let's have a look at that, because there's one
that's
painting we're going to show, and then we're going to go on to that video.
That was the first painting that I did in the Feathers for Roses. As I said in the thing, Douglas brought the poem into our studio, which I use for painting during the day, and in the evening he uses it for music, and we play together there in the evening. So we make very good use out of the room. And so when we were playing that song, I saw this vision of the body lying in the canal as described in the poem, and so I made this painting. That was the first painting for the Feathers for Rosa that ever emerged. Okay. And that's Rosa Luxemburg upside down, surrounded by the water birds and things. And then from that I made some other paintings, and then that's where the whole germ of we had then we had a poem, we had a song, and we had a painting, and it started there, and grew.
So just explain what we're going to be seeing here now.
This is the new theatre, where we then finally put on this culmination of paintings, performance, and film. We put them on then in the new theatre in Dublin, and opened on the 5th of March, which by coincidence is Rosa Luxemburg's birthday. And so we showed it there, and it was very successful. We had full houses for the 3 nights, and Sabina Higgins honoured us with her presence. We were delighted. So yeah, it was very well received. So we have now extended it. It was a 20-minute performance, but we've actually extended that performance now. So we're looking for more places to put it on.
This is really clips from that, isn't it?
It's clips, it's only short.
And it's about 5 minutes long. So sit back and relax and watch this, okay?
Zilch. My savings, just scraped together over the years, eaten away by inflation. And last month, I spent 37 hours propped up in a chair in A&E.
Shamed, dishonoured, wading in blood and dripping in filth. Thus capitalist society stands. Too big to fail. We are wild and bright. What's not to like? Too big to fail. Too big to fail. So hold on tight, the ends in sight. Too big to fail. Too big to fail. Oh, Achtung! Das haben die auch gedacht, damals. They thought that too. Through the iron door, clang! The sirens were wailing. The ground was shuddering when the bombs hit it. They were terrified. They'd been buried alive. There was no singing, no heroics, no feel-good Facebook moments. Walking west on Sonnet Alley, shadows flung long before them. Past the bodies of the men hanging from the S-Bahn bridge. Men with signs hanging from their necks. They always do. They will again.
All right, Candy World Smiles.
Yes, Candy World Smiles is one of the paintings from Feathers for Rosa. And I'm delighted to say that it's going to be exhibited in the Olivier Cornet Gallery, opening tomorrow, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I'll be there with Olivier.
Yeah, so I'm really pleased about that because it's such a lovely space. I'm looking. Unfortunately, I won't be there myself, but I'm going to be coming back through Dublin, so I'm certainly calling in to see it hanging.
Yes.
In a beautiful place. It was, I suppose, like it started about 7 years ago. I've been painting it for about 7 years, and I finally managed to lick it into shape last February in time for Feathers for Rosa. The original is the green space there, what I call the eye of the bridge. And it was a painting of again, of the canal, because I've spent many years of my life on that canal, just painting swans on it. And again, the swans are made from negative space. They're actually not painted with paint, but they're left out. It's the unpainted, like the unsaid, which also interests me very much. And the candy, I suppose, gradually the painting became pinker and pinker, and it was like, I suppose, again, it's this dystopian feelings that I have of the world, this sort of sugar-coated fascism that I feel the world is enveloped in and floundering in. And the paintings for the Fellows for Rosa, as you may have seen, had the body of Rosa quite often in them, floating in the canal. And that red kind of sneer at the end, which is Candy World, the smile of Candy World, that is kind of, it could be the body of Rosa, but it also looks like a smile. So Candy World is, of course, very happy that Rosa is gone.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I also see it, but I think Douglas made the interesting comparison there that he that's my interpretation of it. But he made the interesting comparison that it could be the conscious and the subconscious mind, that it could be interpreted in that way as well. So I like that the paintings can be interpreted, a valid interpretation in different ways. But yes. I saw it anyway. But I suppose, and also these bulrushes coming up there reminded me maybe of missiles, you know, which are guarding the entrance to Candy World. And you've got the butterflies flirting with them, possibly like the pussy puppets, flirting around with the bulrushes. The people who play along with Candy World. But I also see the smile or that horrible sneer as like a wound. And my only seed of hope is that maybe we can rip open the fabric of Candy World. Maybe we can rip that, insert our hands into that wound and rip it apart. That's what I'm trying to do anyway.
Yeah, yeah, no, very well put. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Night Rider. Yeah, this is a painting that I made. Kind of a jolly little number, really. Nothing very dystopian about it, unusually enough. It's kind of, I was thinking, there's all these, in my time in Drimoleague in West Cork, there's all these guys in high-vis jackets whizzing through the village in the middle of the night. And it has a sense of mystery for me. I suppose it's kind of romantic. I have sort of romantic sensibilities in the old-fashioned sense of the word, of the lake poet romantic. Who is this rider riding off into the night kind of thing, you know?
Yes, yes.
Where are they going? And I think I'd probably be terrified cycling into the dark Irish countryside. But these people appear from nowhere and then they shoot off through the village into the other side. And it's sort of, for me, it was a feeling of mystery and where are they going, you know?
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, Plastic Field was, I began to see the plastic fields there, or they started appearing around, and I'm sure they're terrible actually for the environment, but they look great. And I kept catching glimpses of them through, you know, if you're going along in a bus or a car or something, you see them and you think, oh, is that a lake or is it a river? But no, it was plastic field. So I became fascinated with them, and I've done several paintings of them, plastic fields.
Yeah, I mean, I must say that the first time I saw those, Noel, I said, what on earth are they doing?
I know.
Putting plastic on the land like that.
Terrible.
But I believe they're biodegradable now.
Yeah, are they? Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So it's not quite as unecological.
Yeah.
As
just kind of, I suppose, this idea that I'm just holding up a sort of a mirror really to what I see around me. Yes. And I see that its way also in my political ones, that this is how I see the world, you know. And I'm not actually being judgmental about this. I'm actually maybe aestheticizing it a bit, but I do think they're probably terrible as well for the environment. But so many things are.
I know.
Yeah, Storm Swimmers was a painting I did a number of years. That was based actually on an event as well that Douglas and myself went through. It was a terrible storm. We were swimming at a lake in Berlin, outside Berlin actually. We had a little caravan about an hour outside Berlin. And do you remember that terrible storm?
Yes.
It was. We did think we wouldn't survive it. The storm broke out over our heads, and we were sheltering on a little pagoda. Everybody else had left the beach at that stage,
yes,
because continental storms are dangerous. And in fact, we heard that in the next village, 4 men had died in the same storm because they were hit. They hit under a digger. But we thought our end had come as well. And I painted that, and the reason I sort of put it in is because I could deconstruct it very easily, and I like deconstructing paintings. I like the painting structure to be open, and sometimes the smallest marks take a really long time. I may take 20 years finishing a painting sometimes. And in those two little heads took me a really, really long time. I kept wiping them off because I wanted to get the feeling that the head in front was looking back to the other, to say, are you okay?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
It took me ages to my own satisfaction. I don't know, nobody else might really notice it. I just put two dots. But to get the relationship of space between them, if they had been a millimeter different, anytime it was a millimeter different, the relationship was different.
Yes.
Sounds completely daft now, what you occupy your time with these millimeters. And also I wanted the head in front to be looking backwards, and I found that very hard to get that. And I felt I got it to my own satisfaction,
Yeah, very good. And we've just two more to see.
Yes, watercolors. I do an awful lot of watercolors out in the landscape. I love doing watercolor.
And don't you do a bit of teaching as well?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I've just done a course there. I gave a course in Illan, the West Cork Arts Centre there, and I call it Wilding the Watercolor, because I'm trying to kind of rehabilitate the watercolor from the notion of it being a very sort of staid, sort of old lady kind of thing that people seem to think it is anyway. Some people do think that. And the horse is also in watercolor. I painted from life that was up on the cliff. I love painting animals live. And, that was up on a cliff in Courtmacsherry. This horse was towering over me. So I was slightly nervous while painting him, but it brings me back to the fact that I'm actually doing a residency in the West Cork Arts Centre in August, and it's going to be based on animals because I love painting. I love animals. I love working with animals, and so I'm going to be doing a thing called the West Cork Bestiary. I'm going to compile a kind of itinerary of animals around West Cork, and I'm asking people to bring in their animals to be painted, or I'll go out to farms to visit bigger animals, and then I'm going to collect stories about those animals and kind of post them online and put them together, maybe eventually make a book or something. So that's if you're in West Cork, you can come along to that. Oh, I also, in relation to West Cork, another thing I must remember to say is that I'm having an exhibition in Knockbui, a solo exhibition, landscape-based work, and that'll be opening on the 11th of July. And Knockbui is in Union Hall. It's a beautiful new art space that's opened up. This couple called Aileen and Paul Finucane bought this 19th century farmhouse with 18th century outbuildings, and they've converted it and they've gifted it to the community, which is really generous, as an art centre. And it's a much needed facility in West Cork. So West Cork artists, there are so many artists living in West Cork, are showing there, and so I'm showing there on the 11th. And
and were we to mention something about Culture Ireland and the embassy in Germany?
That's right. I'm glad you reminded me.
Quickly.
The Changelings, my exhibition in Michaela Hilfrich Gallery next week, the Changelings in Nighttown, that is part of a program of events in Germany called Zeitgeist Ireland 24. And it's been supported by Culture Ireland and the Embassy of Ireland to Berlin. So they've enabled me to bring this exhibition to Berlin.
Very good. Okay. All right. We're going to go to Q&A now, Noël. But in the meantime, I'm going to read out some of the comments that have been made. David Goldberg said, very powerful film. Disturbing too. Challenging, I think it is. Challenging, yeah. Solan was a remarkable poet, very disturbed, and couldn't go on living after the Holocaust. He was a big influence over Kiefer, wasn't he? The well-known contemporary painter. Another tragedy of power and mispower. Bridget Connaughton says, I had the privilege of seeing Feathers for Rosa in New Theatre and feel it should be performed again and again. I have the painting. There you are. Maria Gabriela Serpi says, congratulations, very creative and original work. Will Mavissers loved this. Maria had to leave. Okay, that's fine. Eilish says, love the avant-garde rawness of this work. Very much enjoying this episode. Thank you, Noël and Alan.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so they've got to go. Right, so anyone want to ask a question, make a comment?
Yes, Alan.
Come in,
Yes.
please. You're on.
Yeah, I'm on. Yes, no, just to say that I'm delighted to have Noel's work in the upcoming exhibition opening tomorrow. Pink is My Color is the title of the exhibition, and it's not just a happy kind of exhibition, if you like. One might be led to think that way because of the pink color. And, you know, Noel's work for me is absolutely on the dot in the sense that, you know, it's tackling a more serious theme, I suppose. And so the exhibition is quite eclectic in that sense, you know. Hopefully, you know, some of you will be able to attend the opening tomorrow at 3, and I'll be with Alan in conversation about my practice as a curator. So hopefully that will make an interesting conversation as well.
Very good. Okay, looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Olivier.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bridget, can't see
Yes.
you.
Oh, well, anyway, I
Yeah,
just
go
want to say, I had the pleasure of finding out about Noel when Neil McMonigal wrote a piece in the Sunday Indo, and it was The Plastic Fields. And we made contact then, and then 5 years later, we made contact again, and so the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I think she's terrific.
Oh, thanks.
Very good.
Thank you,
And thank you, Bridget, for introducing me to Noel, because that's how we got to meet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
No, just say, Noel, I don't know whether I knew your dad or not. I might well have done. Was he connected with the Crawford?
He was teacher of painting there for 30 years.
Yes, yeah, I did. I didn't know him then. Yeah.
So if you went to the Crawford anytime between 1940 and 1970, you would have been taught by him if you were.
I didn't go there as a student, but I did
Right.
know him. Yeah.
Yeah.
My family were very much involved in art in Cork
Right.
and culture. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, I did know him. I did know him.
Great.
Yeah. And know his paintings as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Good
good.
painter too. And you follow in his footsteps. But I love your courageous approach to painting. It's in depth. It's thought through. It's greatly simplified and fresh, which is a remarkable achievement. Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Anybody else? Did you want to say something?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Just to say, I love your watercolors, Noel, and your work is so from the heart, and so you can read so much into your work. I follow you on Facebook, so
Carol, yes.
yeah.
And
Douglas, that was a super. The feathers, that's amazing, because I'm surrounded here in Mullingar with swans down at Butler's Bridge. You'd nearly run away from them. You know, you try to draw them and coming up.
It can be quite scary.
Congratulations, and I hope to get to your show in Dublin over the next few days. Well done, and thanks, Alan.
Thank you very much, Carol. That's super. Okay, listen, we leave it there. Time is moving on. Noel, thank you so much.
A pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Great to have you on, and both of you. And I wish you every continued success. And now that you're moving back to Ireland full time,
yes,
yeah, no doubt we'd bump into each other again.
Then anyone in West Cork, do feel free to give me a shout if you were down there.
Eilish is just saying, is Noel on Instagram? I couldn't find her. I'll tell you why you can't find her. Because it's called The Sketch of the Day.
The Sketch of the Day. I should be plugging that kind of thing, of course. Yeah. So if you want to see more of my work, I suppose Facebook, I use Facebook only really for art, and Instagram also, I use them for art. So there's my website, which is a little out of date sometimes, but you know, social media.
That's if you just Google Noël O'Callaghan, you'll get that. And the Instagram is The Sketch of the Day, because that caught me as well. I was trying to look for you as Noel, and I couldn't find you. So that's very good. Okay, we leave it there. Thanks again, Noel, so much. And thank you all for watching. And for those on YouTube, don't forget to give it a little like and subscribe if you haven't already. It all helps the cause. The big surprise for you next Saturday, we've got one of the Day in the Life documentaries, short documentaries. And the subject is none other than Martin Gale. And I think you'll find that very interesting. And then we have a final episode or interview with Eddie Kennedy on the following Saturday. Okay, and that will be the end of this series. And then Series 5 will commence in September. And we've got a fantastic lineup already planned for that. So again, thanks all for joining. Thank you, Noël, and look forward to seeing you next Saturday at the premiere of Martingale. All right, cheerio. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.